So often we can look at that trauma and say, poor me, I'm a victim. This is how my mom was, my grandmother was, and so I'm doomed, and my kids are doomed. And that happens a lot as well. That's just the way it's done. Don't ask questions, just do it. Or we don't take the time to stop and look at what might be happening, and it continues. What a great opportunity to step back and really look at it and come at it with, oh, wow, how wonderful. How wonderful we get to break this.
Real women, real lives, real stories. This is the Ladies in Power podcast. Unfiltered, unscripted, and refreshingly authentic. We're not holding back, and maybe after this, neither will you. Let's go.
Welcome to the Ladies in Power podcast. My name is Meeka Casey.
I'm Sandeep.
Dr. Soraya.
Gurvinder.
And we are Ladies in Power just like you. If you're just joining us, welcome. Thank you for being here. Please like, subscribe, and share if you enjoy spending some time with us today, whether you're driving or doing your laundry or just sitting around in a lawn chair. We are so glad that you are here. Today, we're going to be talking about breaking generational trauma. We all have it, some deeper, darker, thicker than others. And we are focused here on providing solutions, options, and giving you perspectives from 4 different women from 4 different backgrounds in the world, if you will. And so I am curious, Dr. Masa Soraya, what are your thoughts on our topic today?
I didn't really know what that meant. I think, Gurvinder, can you explain that to me again, what is meant by generational trauma?
So generational trauma is, from my point of view, is trauma that has been passed down from previous generations. Things that our grandparents went through. For example, if anyone that was in the Holocaust, their grandchildren and great-grandchildren still feel certain effects of trauma, even though they weren't there. Their grandparents or great-grandparents were actually in the camps, but they weren't, and so they actually feel the trauma. And also our First Nations people, they didn't actually have the trauma done to them this day and age, but it was done to their grandparents, their great-grandparents, or their great-great-great-grandparents.
So it's not necessarily something your parents did to you that you would consider traumatic now, but it was something that was kind of unconsciously transmitted.
Yes, it's passed down through epigenetics. We have certain markers that are passed down to us, and from what I understand, when you feel a certain emotion, those protein markers open up, and once they open up, you feel a bunch of emotions that you previously were not known to. They were not known to you. And that's when we can trace them back to the grandparents, the great-grandparents, or the great-great-grandparents.
When I think about generational trauma, my story is actually I have several. One of them that I want to bring to surface is a positive because, like you were sharing, Gurvinder, about the Holocaust or First Nations or people coming from Iran or coming from Poland or coming from Ukraine. There are, most places in the world have some history that is traumatic. And that's the one that I'll tap into today for myself is because my grandparents came from Poland. And my grandfather was in the war as a soldier. He was a paratrooper, which means he jumped out of planes in World War II. And my grandmother, my babcha, was in a concentration camp. And not to go into all the details, to share with you that I was very blessed that my grandparents shared some of their stories with me as a young girl, and that has positively influenced my life into appreciating things that maybe other people might not appreciate because I've experienced through them some of their trauma. And it's changed my life to help me recognize warning signs or to see things that are that other people might take for granted, I might have on a good day a little extra appreciation for. And it's not every day. I do take a lot for granted. When I remember my grandparents and where they came from, then I have this deep sense of gratitude for everything that they went through to have what I have today. So that's one of the stories that I wanted to touch on from my generational trauma and how it's been a blessing and a positive in my life.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm still not understanding the concept of this. Like I do hear, for example, in some African countries that there were circumcisions of women, right? So that they wouldn't feel pleasure. And even though women had that happen to them, which I think is horrendous, then why would they insist on doing it on their own female children? Like, is that called a generational trauma because that had been done to them, so they saw it as no other reason? I mean, knowing that it was so horrible, why do it to your children or your grandchildren?
Can I jump in on that?
Sure.
You were sharing a story, or you've shared a story about different energies, and sometimes we can be driving down the street in a car and enjoying the ride, enjoying the flowers and the trees and looking at the sky and listening to the music. And it's time out in the car. It's really chill if you're a passenger. Other people might be very concerned about the driver, looking at 5 cars ahead, looking who's coming to the left, who's coming to the right, checking the rear view mirror, making sure that the driver has 2 hands on the wheel and is paying attention, not texting. So there could be a trauma behind that instilled in that passenger the need to look around and not be able to enjoy the ride because of a previous traumatic incident. So that would be maybe a first level trauma. Whereas if you go back another level, generational, so a grandparent, not just a parent, might have had a trauma that was passed on to the mother. So one thing that I think of is there are people who come from war-torn countries. Their grandparents have come from war-torn countries. And then the parents, though they weren't growing up in the war, they were raised by people that might have had PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So their minds might not be 100% all the time. A big noise or the dark might scare them, and they don't really understand why, because that was something that happened when they were very, very young. And then they'll keep all the lights on and not have lots of loud noises. And then the third generation doesn't really understand where that came from. That could be a generational experience, which, if it's looked at negatively, could be considered a trauma. Does that help?
Okay, yeah. Okay. Like in that case, I see myself in that exactly. Like I didn't go through the Iran war. I was very young, but my parents did. But I have this tendency to always look for what danger is coming, or what, in the words of Keith Cunningham, which balls are rolling into the street, and then trying to be 5 steps ahead of it. And it could be anything. It could be a letter in the news that says, Canada is now buying cars from China. And my head will go to, oh, this is fantastic. Now this means X, Y, and Z. We're going to move our assets from here to another country, because this can mean, and people around me are going like, whoa, they're just allowing cars into the country. So I get that. That's the way my brain works now. It's always trying to find the trauma or the danger, navigate it, and find a solution way before it's happened.
And some people don't even realize that they're experiencing a trauma. And that is where often chaos ensues. If you're not sure, if you don't understand why something is scary to you, it doesn't make logical sense that something is scary. But there's an experience in your body remembers. Your body remembers. Your mind might have protected itself and hidden it or let it go. But a part of your body, a part of your cells still remember that. And that can be passed on if we go down the rabbit hole. And you're right, we could take 2 episodes. There's a DNA response. Your DNA remembers
Epigenetics.
trauma, epigenetics. So DNA meaning your bloodline, cells in your blood remember
things that consciously we don't have a memory of, but it's in the cells, it's in the blood, it's in the
And going back to what you said about the the castorization, it's inherent. So they wouldn't know that it isn't normal. They just did it. No one questioned it. And so they would just keep doing it until someone stops and pauses and says, this isn't normal. This isn't right. So
Mm,
somebody has to, and especially when the whole society thinks that this is okay, they're just going to think it's normal and inherent, and no one's going to question it until someone stands up and says, "Hey, this isn't right. We shouldn't be doing this. Let's stop the madness."
mm,
Hmm. I'm thinking of two quite fresh examples, I think, that would, you know, highlight generational trauma. One is in a good friend of mine, and we have a lot of great conversations. And one of the things that sort of come to light is there's this theme of fear that runs through their family. So there's this fear and this sort of anxiety, worry. And when we were breaking it down and just kind of talking about our parents, and the parents exhibit it, and then we went back further, and she was talking about talking her grandmother in India. Now I don't fully know the historical details, but in the 1940s, there was a partition that happened in India where people from one part of one state had to immediately, almost without notice, leave and move to another part of that same state. But it was a really long distance. They had to cross, by land. Um, anyway, her grandmother witnessed her father being killed suddenly, tragically, unexpectedly. And when you think about what that young girl witnessed, she saw the pillar of her family, the strength, the support, the security vanish in an instant.
mm.
So this is my friend's grandmother. Now, you are a young girl and you witnessed this. You've witnessed this firsthand. And you have to think, what does that do to a child's psyche? So she's going to grow up. She has many ways she can grow up, but it's not going to be a surprise to any of us if she grows up fearful and unsure about her surroundings at all times and wondering, am I safe? How do I stay safe? It's all about safety, security, living. So she's going to, when she eventually gets married and has children, she's going to instill that fear, safety into her children. Be careful, be careful, be
Yes.
careful, be careful.
Mhm.
And now my friend's mother is the child. So now she's gets married. She has children. She doesn't know why. She hasn't experienced it firsthand, but she understands that there's something to do with safety, and it's very important because that's how I was raised.
Mhm.
And so the focus of fear and safety and worry is just that underlying theme. Now you have my friend who's my generation, and we have, thank goodness, all this exposure to the terminology, the descriptions that we can access now to understand, well, what is generational trauma? We look at the definition, and then we say, how does this apply to our life? And she's starting to put some of the dots together and say, I have a lot of anxiety. Like she's got two young adults, children, and when they're away, or there was, if they're going away to school or any of that, there was this sense of worry.
Mm.
And it I don't think she recognized that it doesn't feel right
Or normal, or
or
yeah.
normal, or she started questioning it. So that is a really beautiful example, I think, of generational trauma and how it gets passed down,
Yeah.
maybe without people even knowing what it is they're passing down. But there is some point, I think, initiation point where that trauma happened, and how that entered the psyche. We're not necessarily conscious of it, but down the road, 4 generations later now, look, it's having that impact. Now, her daughters, if she's aware of it, she's going to start speaking about it to her kids and saying, listen, I recognize that I tend to worry, I tend to over worry, and we're going to try and break that together because I don't want you to go ahead in life
Yeah.
being afraid to live your fullest life because of this fear I've instilled in you. So it's just such a beautiful example of generational trauma. And it's just about awareness, I think, right? If we start to question ourselves, and sometimes it's not even us that do the questioning, it's somebody else, like you said, Gurvinder, who might say, why are you doing that? What's the reasoning for this thing? Oh, it's just a custom. It's what we do. It's normal. Oh, that's new. I've never seen that before. And now the person who's experiencing it as normal may get a question mark saying, oh, doesn't everybody do this? Isn't this normal for everyone? And so that may take you on that journey to further look into it. And why do we do this? And so that's one example. I can share another one that's personal to me, if that's okay.
Sure, go
Yeah.
for it.
So my recent example is within the 3 generations. I'm the filling. So I'm going to speak about my mom, myself, and my daughter, who's 22. And the recent sort of awareness that I've had about a generational pattern, I don't know if I want to call it, I don't know if it's a trauma, but anyway, is that I recognized in myself that I was doing this thing where I would just take on everything for everyone. And I'd feel really good about it in the short run, short term. But over a period of time, there was this underlying resentment that was sort of at the bottom, at this, just beneath the surface. And then sometimes it would be the smallest thing, but it would just set me off. And my daughter's the one who brought light to it because she said to me once, your reaction didn't match the circumstance. And I remember those words they really shook me. And I said, what do you mean? And she goes, well, you got really upset, but it was over such a small thing. And I had to think about that, a small thing. And I was like, she's right. The thing I got upset about was so small. And then I went on that journey of why did that set me off? And then I realized, it's because there was little things happening all along the way that I kept quiet about. I didn't speak my truth on. And at some point, I guess the capacity was reached and then beyond. And that's where the reaction came from. So in short, what it's helped me realize is I have sort of this, what I call martyr syndrome, where I will take it on, take it on, take it on, and then lose it at some point. And it's because I'm trying to be everything for everyone, give to everyone else first. But I realized I needed to change that. And then, of course, where did I pick that up from? Unknowingly, my mom was doing this. She wasn't aware that she also uh, did everything for everyone very quietly without expecting anything in return. But sometimes she kind of expected us to read her mind and just know what she needed. But that was really confusing to me as a child when I go back. So now I'm at a point with my daughter. And recently, just this past week, in fact, she was debating leaving her residence at university a month early, 2 months early, almost as a bit of a sacrifice. I know internally she was thinking, oh, we'll save some money. It's okay. I can drive to university every day. It's not that big a deal. And I had to actually have a really serious talk with her and explain this pattern that I see coming down. And I said, it's your choice to do what you're going to do. But let me tell you one thing. If you leave university residence 2 months early, and yes, it saves us money. That's nice. But if you're doing it for that reason, I will tell you right now, you're not going to get any awards for it. No one's going to say, wow, bravo, daughter, you saved us money. And you know what? You're the daughter of the year. I go, none of that's coming your way. So knowing that, do it for yourself. Be selfish, be self-loving, and save yourself the daily drive to university. And please don't come home early because you're trying to do us a favor. I would much rather you stay there because it's convenient for you, and you will feel great about that for the rest of your life. But if you come home early and 5 years down the road, you start to feel some resentment because, wow, I didn't really complete my university experience the way I would have liked to. That is going to be a shame because that's the cycle we need to break. We don't want that resentment to come down the road. So that's an example of some generational pattern breaking that we're currently in the midst of trying to become aware of and to gently break.
Beautiful. What I'm gathering is that generational trauma looks different for everyone, as everything does. I mean,
Yeah.
mine goes back to the war and concentration camps, and yours is showing your daughter the truth about reward. And it's not necessarily traumatic, although down the line it could be. It could be huge.
Yeah.
You not understand why the accolades aren't coming and recognizing the pattern from your mom. How beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Because it could have impact on
everyone
Yeah,
around you.
exactly. So that could create trauma in her children down the road.
Absolutely.
If
And her
she's not aware.
marriage and
Yes,
her
yes.
in-laws and
If she
her, oh
explodes
my
and she's,
gosh.
it's not potentially a pleasant scenario. And that just carries on and on and on. So that is a very different example perhaps to others.
It's breaking the cycle.
It's breaking the
Oh
cycle,
my
and so she
gosh.
gets it because we talk about this now for quite a bit. So I looked at her and I actually grabbed her hand. I said, "You and I, we need to break this cycle.
Mm.
Can you help? Can we do this together? I'll do my part, but can you do your part? And your part is now being okay with doing what feels right to you."
This is the beauty of the whole thing. It really is the solution oriented view, because honestly, we can look at this two different ways. I'm the victim of generational trauma or patterns that don't serve, however you want to look at it. Or you can look at it as, oh my gosh, yay, I was willing to look at what might be slightly out of balance here, really look at it, get some support in looking at it, and then go in and see it for a gift that it is. Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that I see this, I recognize it. Now I'm going to do something about it. Because so often we can look at that trauma and say, poor me, I'm a victim. This is how my mom was, my grandmother was, and so I'm doomed, and my kids are doomed. And that happens a lot as well. That's just the way it's done. Don't ask questions, just do it. Or we don't take the time to stop and look at what might be happening, and it continues. What a great opportunity to step back and really look at it and come at it with, oh, wow, how wonderful. How wonderful we get to break this. Like, and celebrate
And
it
celebrate it. Yeah.
instead of, just being so angry about it.
Yeah.
Not that anger is bad. There's a place for being angry and having a little resentment and maybe feeling guilty for not, whatever. All those feelings you're grieving. Ultimately, those are the 5 stages of grief that will come in when you recognize something and you're willing to let it go. You're grieving, letting go a pattern, a generational trauma. Oh, it's so beautiful.
Thank you.
Such a gorgeous share.
Yeah.
Thank you. Wow.
Thank you. Feels good to share that one. Yeah, because
Yes.
it's really honestly happening in the moment.
Hmm.
And I can see that this daughter of mine I can see that she's feeling empowered, and she's sensing and learning that this is all within her choosing.
Hmm.
How she takes on anything else in life is just examining it. And she's very blessed, and I know she's aware of this, that she's got 2 parents who have done a lot of work on ourselves.
Oh, nice.
So that we also
Yeah.
said to her that if anything comes up
Mm.
regarding us from your childhood, actually, it was my husband that said this. I have to give him so much credit for this beautiful phrase. He said, "You may not feel it's okay to be angry with us now because we are so different now, but you're allowed to you're allowed to be angry at the past version of us. You're allowed to feel angry. Don't feel guilt and don't feel sad about that." So even just that shift, really, I think our goal is to try and lighten any of the energy that's stuck in the next generation.
Mhm.
And then, of course, do our own work to release whatever's stuck within us. And if you are fortunate enough to have the generation before us around still, I would encourage anyone to sit down and listen to their stories, listen to their childhoods. You will learn so much about some of the patterns that will come up in your own, lineage as they comes down the road.
I've got a great book. If anybody wants to read it, just let me know in the comments section. My grandfather wrote a book called My Life I've Lived 1,000 Years.
Wow.
And he finished it on his deathbed. And I mean, he jumped out of many planes and he broke his back and he was beaten to a pulp with his face smashed with the end of a rifle, left in a ravine to die, and captured by the other side, and they left him for dead, and he wasn't. And I mean, his story is just so it's incredible. And the way he found my grandmother, he went to hire 2 waitresses from the concentration camp to serve them, and my grandmother was one of them, and saved her life. And like, just we have no concept of of that kind of pain and trauma. I think in this life we're so blessed, and there is a blessing to learning from it. Yeah. And it's not there's no competition. Trauma is trauma.
Mhm.
Just what we do with it, how we learn from it, how we heal from it and serve with it
Mhm.
is my focus.
There are a couple of movies. Holes is a really great one that shows generational trauma. And Moana. If
Oh
anyone's
yeah,
watched Moana,
Oh.
Moana talks about generational trauma. And her trauma was very interesting because she's like, there's something in me saying that we shouldn't be on this island. And within her was an aspect of knowing that her ancestors were sailors.
Mm-hmm.
And so she
Oh, yeah.
fought with her parents to go into the water. She wasn't allowed to be in the water. And she found Maui, and together they went on this journey, and she found the heart of Tafiki and placed it back on her. And suddenly, the plague that was on their island suddenly disappeared, and all the ships that were lost away were found. And they started doing things as they had generations before, become sailors.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a trauma in there about being on the water that had stopped generations before from moving forward. Somebody had been killed, or I don't know if there was some sort of natural disaster that made the islanders stay on the island and not leave.
Mm.
And because she had this inkling of like, no, I'm meant to be on the water. I feel like I am just meant to be out there. She fought with her parents, finally decided to go on this journey, and came back full circle saying, this is who we were. And this is what we are meant to be. So if you're looking for some great movies, Moana is fantastic. Moana is a fantastic, fantastic movie to show generational trauma. And one thing that I notice when I'm talking to clients, I notice patterns. I notice patterns when they first start speaking, when they detail whatever is going on with their lives. And that's when I take it to a different level. We go into past life regression. And when we go into past life regression, I help them find where that pattern first began. We go to the root cause, which is generational. And we find that root cause. And that root cause is a massive weed with all these different branches. So we'll cut down the weeds and cut down those branches until you're into a root where you finally start feeling safe. And that's the goal. The goal of getting to the weed is for you to feel safe and release all that generational trauma. And something may come up in the future. For instance, I've always wanted to know the reasons why my grandma was the way she was, like my paternal grandma. And I found out the reason why she was the way she was is because she was married at a very, very young age. She was married at 14 in India. And once I believe when she turned 16, she had to go live with her in-laws. And this is a teenager living with her in-laws and facing all the different things, not being allowed to speak, not being able to look into people's eyes. Basically, it was moving from one household of not being allowed to do anything to a new household where she wasn't with her parents. She was with a new family, and she wasn't allowed to speak up. She wasn't allowed to do anything. And then I thought about our current generation. Like, why doesn't my mom speak up? Why doesn't my grandma speak up now? And how are we going to be? And I always had questions as a teenager. I was always the child going, but why? Why can't I do this? But why do you do that? And my parents would often be very irritated and annoyed that I would even want to speak up to them. But now with our children, we have 4 daughters, and we encourage them to speak. We encourage them to ask us questions. We want to have dialogue. And it was a conscious effort recognizing that this pattern started many, many decades ago. And it wasn't just with us, it was my parents and my grandparents. And recognizing that, you know what, I don't want this.
No.
I don't want this filtrating down to my kids. I want to be able to speak up. I want to be able to say what is on my mind, in my heart, and I want to make sure that our children are able to do the same thing. And when you do quantum EFT or past life regression, the beautiful thing is once we get to that trauma, this past trauma, the future generation will not feel it. Once we validate it, it no longer will stay in the body, and it will no longer stay in your lineage. And that's the beautiful thing about addressing it, especially with someone who's qualified to do this, a quantum EFT practitioner. And it will take you to places where it's so delightful after.
Full disclaimer. Full disclaimer. There are a lot of different modalities of healing, and please do what is most suited to you. This is one fantastic pathway to discovering, and it's not a one size fits all, and what might work for one person might not work for everyone. Gurvinder does have tremendous success, and it's also my responsibility to let you know that there are a lot of different modalities, and you must speak with your doctor. When we're talking about generational trauma, when we're talking about PTSD, these are very serious mental illnesses in many cases, and need to be treated as such with tremendous respect and and discernment. So just to say that. So
Yeah.
So I guess in conclusion, from what I understood, because I didn't know much about it, is like if something doesn't feel right, we don't have to sheepishly keep doing the same thing, right? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
it all makes sense. It's like the little cartoon with Croods, right? Remember,
Yeah.
the father would wake up every morning and tell the kids, never forget to be afraid.
I don't know that cartoon.
Oh my
Is that the
Ah.
newspaper?
So it's a comedy, it's a little Disney cartoon. And it's about a family that's prehistoric, and in the jungle, they live in the jungle.
Mm.
They worry about everything that modern day human being doesn't have to worry about, like hunting, being chased by tiger. And every morning, this was the father's pep talk. It wasn't like go there and carpe diem. It wasn't like go grab the day. It was like, don't forget to be afraid. Like every day he was reminding them to be afraid, because afraid is what kept the family alive. And it was really funny to watch, but really he was doing a great favor
Yes.
trying to keep the clan safe, right? So before he pushed the cave door open, they all got the same speech: never forget to be afraid. So
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that is keeping the family safe
but
based on his
also
experience, because
well, that's it. So during this whole movie, they find different clans and different way of life. And their daughter is like, no, we're not going to be afraid anymore. We're going to find greener pastures. We're going to have more safer lives. We're going to change our way of thinking. But now, just listening to you all, that is a perfect example
Yes.
of
Yeah,
generational
that's
trauma.
Yeah.
They all
Because at
had
some
it.
point it makes sense.
Yeah,
Initially,
of
maybe it
course.
made
It made
sense.
sense.
That's how they
Yeah.
survived. That was, you had to be alert, maybe,
Yes.
and then
And
if you
afraid.
fast forward 6 generations to 2025 and dad wakes up every day and says, okay, family,
Don't
everyone,
forget to
make sure you're afraid today. You're like,
what?
Yeah.
why?
Exactly.
And that's our negativity bias. And I've said this in another episode. That's what kept us alive back in the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Centuries and centuries, like our reptilian brain.
it doesn't keep us alive now.
No.
That's
No.
it. Well, and
The
but
whole
it's
thing
still,
of don't talk to strangers,
yeah,
that doesn't work if you're in sales. That doesn't work if you're building a company. That doesn't work
exactly.
if you're promoting a podcast.
No,
We must speak to strangers. We must adapt. We must adapt.
yeah, and we actually have to work at seeing the grass greener on the other side.
Yeah.
We have to work at it
absolutely.
because
It's so foreign.
It's very foreign, and our brain is like, no, but I want to keep you safe, and you're like, no, but I want to check this out, and your brain is like,
Mhm.
no, it's not safe there, and you're like,
Right.
but I really want to, and so you're fighting this until you make it a habit, until you make it feel safe, and the brain is like, okay, I get it, you've gone down this route many times, I'll let you do that, and okay, I guess we are safe. Go ahead.
Mhm.
Like there's these signals that the brain needs to receive for the body to feel okay and safe and go forward.
I say be kind to all strangers. They may have money.
Oh my gosh.
For the money. I was wondering if I'm listening to our podcast now and I'm kind of going, huh, I wonder if I'm carrying any generational trauma patterns.
Yeah.
How would I go about identifying them? What do you suggest?
Yeah, step one is being curious, which
Yes.
is wonderful.
That was a good thing,
That
too.
was great. That was step one.
Good
It's
job,
like,
listeners.
wow, good
Yes.
job, listeners. Step two is to have a conversation with someone that you trust and say, here's what I'm thinking might have had some influence. Another way of looking at this is what has had influence on some of the strongholds in your life, some of the things that, influence your decisions. And that will help you recognize, where did that belief come from? Why am I innately scared of the dark when I know it doesn't make sense, and yet there's a real fear there? So first thing, noticing. Second thing is getting it into something that you can work with, and then talking to somebody about it that you trust, talking to a professional about it, looking back, reflecting on areas of your life that maybe that's had negative impact. If, for example, you were taught not to talk to strangers because of generational patterns of trauma, and you're not talking to people, and talking to people is something that you must do to thrive in your personal, professional life, then that would be a great place to start. Okay, let's dig in. Let's go see an energy practitioner. Let's go see a psychologist. Let's talk to somebody who I trust and who's been through horrific or scary journey before and has come through the other side. Solution's going to look different for everyone.
Mm.
It's just, I think the first step is getting that curiosity flowing and knowing that we all have it. We all have it.
Exactly.
We all have it. I
You're
mean,
wondering, do I have it? The answer is you do.
the answer is yes. If you're wondering, do I have it? It could be the fear of aging. I'm not going to be loved if I don't age well. If I gain weight, I'm not going to be loved. If I don't have children, I'm not going to be loved. There are, because of beliefs that we've heard growing up, those things can cause trauma in our body, dis-ease in the body, which then can show up as disease. And that's another sign, is if you've got disease in your body and it doesn't add up. You eat well, you're exercising, you do all these things, and yet there's still something going on in your body. There's a really great chance that you have that emotional trauma lodged into your body in some way. So getting curious. Yeah.
Okay, let's say now you figure it out. So what? What's the benefit of sorting out your
There's a couple of
generational
books. There's a Mark Wolin, Trauma Didn't Start With You. If you're curious, that is a fantastic book to read. It lets you know, it talks about intergenerational trauma, how it could have started, how it relates to your mom versus your dad, and paternal
Maternal, yeah.
and maternal generational trauma, and also a book, oh my goodness, Trauma, It Doesn't Keep Score, by Bessel von, oh my goodness.
We'll put it in the comment
We will
section.
put it in the comments. But these books are fantastic. Oh, and another book called Your Grandmother's Hands. They all talk about generational trauma. And all of them are very different. But they let you know that the other thing that comes with generational trauma is what it does to the body. What area of the body sometimes it gets stuck in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to answer your question, Sandeep, about what are the benefits, it's freedom. It's freedom to create with this gorgeous mind that we're all given, that has been programmed by somebody else's stuff, to free that and be able to create from a place of your own desire and your own dreams and your own wishes. When we're worried about being enclosed, or we're conscious or unconsciously living in a bubble because of outside circumstances, we're in the bubble. If that bubble gets popped because there's an awareness and it's healed, you have no bubble, you have no walls, there's no more box.
Yeah.
There's that freedom to create and to love more and receive love more and recognize that you're enough and that you are loved and that you are it's an infinite it's such a great question. There are so many reasons to look into it. Yeah, I
And-
can promise you that it's worth digging into.
And to your point, it's like there's a default system within us. So all this intergenerational trauma is like a default system. We don't know any better until the other point you said, until we start looking at it. And once we look at it, we can create our new set point.
That's our timer, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes. So you can create your new set point, and that can be your new baseline. And once you create that new baseline, it doesn't have to infiltrate into the next generation. So yes, we have a default system that we have inherited from our ancestors. And once we recognize it, you can decide if you want to change it, or if you want this default system and you're okay with it. You know what? I'm good with it. I don't need it changed. Or you can create a new set point.
Choices.
Yeah.
It gives you choices.
It does.
Oof,
And I
very
think it's
nice.
such a beautiful thing. Oh my gosh, such a beautiful thing to know that by doing the work, you can help someone in the next generation. By saying a statement to them, by being conscious of what you're sharing with them or what you're passing to them, as someone of influence. And I think that is just a remarkable, privilege to have that knowing. I have a 9-year-old niece, and, I go out of my way to look at her in the eye, and I'll tell her, I love you. And she'll be like, yes, I know. And I'll say, no, but I love you when you're grumpy and if you're mad and if you yell. I really love you then, especially. And she'll be like, you do? Oh, yes. Oh, yes, I do. Because that's me taking the healed version of my little girl and making a friend and saying, I don't want you to ever experience that feeling or wondering, am I worthy of love if I'm not perfect or my best or always, performing for the joy of others? Can I just be perfect within myself and for myself? And so it's so interesting to me that those are the words that I constantly want to share with her. And of course, I have a daughter. And so with her too, really wanting to make sure that message goes through loud and clear. Yeah. So I think that another benefit is definitely, like you both have said, that you're free, and then you're also, you're able to even make a difference in someone else's life and minimize the impact of generational trauma, perhaps for them. And even a little bit would go such a long way. So isn't that worth it?
Absolutely. Hope this was as fun and eye-opening and heart-opening for you as it has been for us. We are excited for our next episode, so you're going to want to come back. We're going to be talking about influencers, and oh my gosh, it's yummy. So don't miss out. Make sure to click that subscribe button, hit the notification bell if you're on YouTube, and share with somebody who needs a little girl time, because that's why we're here. And we love you, and you are loved, and you are enough. And thank you so much for being here.
And with
Yes.
that,
See you next time. Yay!
The views shared on this podcast reflect our personal experiences and opinions. This content is not a substitute for professional advice. Please consult a qualified expert for any medical, legal, or mental health concern. If this conversation spoke to you, please follow the Ladies in Power podcast and leave us a review. Your voice helps more people find this sisterhood and these conversations. Together we rise. And remember, your voice matters here.